go. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today is the CEO and executive coach of Pierce Webb Basketball, Mr. Drew Hanlen. Drew, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to enjoy it.
All right, Coach. So first questions first. Did you get any shots up this morning?
Not yet. Actually, I've got a kind of a weird routine for me. I'm in Philadelphia right now. I'm helping Joel Embiid get ready for the restart of the NBA season. And we've been working out every single night at 5 p.m. So I really have all day to kind of do whatever I want. I'm actually writing a book right now that has nothing to do with basketball. It's called Stop BSing Yourself. It's kind of the science behind how to actually take action. And it's been great for me. You know, there's been nights because I don't have to wake up. There's some nights where I'll roll until 4 or 5 a.m. and sleep in a little bit later than I normally would. There's other days where I wake up super early and knock out a full day work before workouts. But I'm so used to being, you know, client after client during this period of time. But because of the virus, no one's traveling. And so everybody's locked in. And so I'm really in cities with one client at a time, which means that the majority of the day I really have to kind of work on some of the passion projects that I've usually had to push, you know, to the back burner. So it's actually been a kind of a exciting time for me just to finally work on some of the non-basketball related projects that I've wanted to work on for a while.
So explain this to me really quick, because I want to touch on this as well. Obviously, the league is on a standstill right now. Embiid being a big guy, he's always saying, trust the process. When the process gets upset like this, what's your schedule like? How'd you pivot? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot changed for me. I was actually doing a camp in Hawaii and was actually flying to the East Coast to start working out some of my guys up here on March 11th when the season shut down. And I remember I landed in Phoenix. I had a layover in Phoenix. And when I landed, I had missed call after missed call. I had text messages like crazy. My clients were blowing me up and they're like, yo, like, what are you doing? And I was like, sorry, I was on a flight. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't able to answer the FaceTimes. And I started calling them once I saw the news that the season had been canceled. And the question that they all asked me was, what do we do now? And for the first time ever in my career, at least, I didn't have the right answer because there were so many kind of unknowns. We didn't know when the restart was going to be. We didn't know if there was going to be a remainder of this season or if we were just getting ready for next season. We didn't know what the travel restrictions would be from just, you know, from the whole United States, not just the NBA, just like in general travel restrictions. And we didn't know how serious the virus was. And so for the first time ever, I really had to say, I don't know. Then they started asking me about load management. Remember, most NBA players, the second that they get knocked out of the season, we have a very strategic way of getting them ready for next season. We know how much time they're going to take off. We know when they're going to start to slowly ramp up cardio. We know when they're going to start to prepare their bodies. We know when they're going to get on the court and work on their skills. We know how to, you know, kind of go in waves so that they're getting the proper rest and recovery so that they can be at their best when they need to be at their best the following season. None of that was able to happen because we didn't know when they were going to come back. And so the answer was kind of deferred into the future. And we just said, hey, let's just keep staying educated. I'm going to talk to as many, you know, well-known, kind of gurus in the medical field to kind of feel out what they're saying. And then we'll make our best educated guess. And so a lot of them took off a month where they did nothing, just let their body rest and recover and kind of treated it this time period as a mini off season, even though it became a bigger off season than they've ever had. And then after that, they started to get back on, you know, bikes and on treadmills and get kind of their cardio going. And then about 3 to 4 weeks ago, a lot of them started to get back on the court and really attack their skill development so that they could feel good as a basketball player again. But again, it's just so much uncertainty that you just had to really go with the flow for the first time. And a lot of these guys, people don't realize this, but a lot of these guys have every second of every day planned out for the entire year. So it was the first time they ever could, you know, really just kind of kick back. And you see a lot of my guys started streaming on video games, and it gave them a little glimpse of what life is like once you retire. You know, when you have unlimited money and unlimited flexibility, where you kind of have to schedule your day to make the most out of it.
Yeah, Drew, especially for people that are so habitual day in, day out, especially those coaches having all the practice plans down to a T. When something interrupts them, it's got to be a little challenging. But I'm sure, I mean, they're elite athletes. They're going to figure it out regardless. But Drew, I think maybe just for our audience really quick, they're like, who is this guy that's talking right now to me? This is someone that you usually don't have on your show. Maybe explain to our audience what you do, and then who are some of the clients that you develop?
Yeah, so the easiest way to put it is I'm a private skills coach and consultant for NBA players. And so what does that mean? That means during the season, I'm the guy breaking down film. I'm putting together scouting reports before and after games. I'm putting together kind of film clips so that they can make adjustments throughout the season. And I'm also the guy that, is kind of like a surgeon where I'm on demand. If something's broke, I go in and fix it. During the off season, I'm their trainer. I'm the one that's putting together strategic programs to make sure that they get the best results possible so that they're an improved player the following season. That's the main gist of my business on the basketball world. And the last 3 years or so, I've started to use that same strategic process with a lot of executives that are in the business world. So whether it's, high-performing CEOs, whether it's, companies that just need kind of a boost, whether it's strategically or whether it's just kind of the motivation kind of factor. I'm kind of a no nonsense, get down to business. Let's get stuff done kind of guy. And so those are the two realms that I'm in. I'm known for the basketball side just because, some of the clients I work with, Joel Embiid, Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum, Zach LaVine, Jordan Clarkson, Kelly Oubre. I mean, there's a ton of guys that I've worked with throughout my career. And on the business side, I've done it more kind of behind closed doors, besides the public speaking appearances, which obviously everyone knows about. But the executive coaching for me has actually been very fun because I take a lot of these guys that do like sports and they've been very successful. Most of them are making, from $1 million to, way more than $1 million, from $1 million literally to $1 billion clients range. And really help them kind of break down their business and their life in a strategic process. The funny thing is most of the executives that hire me, they hire me because they've hit a plateau and they want to take their game to the next level, if you use the word game like I do. And a lot of times we find out that something off of the court, their business, outside of their business is the thing that's really holding them back. Whether it's an executive that is dealing with something in their marriage, or whether it's an executive that, has always prided themselves on making a certain salary and they finally achieve that salary and now they're not experiencing the happiness that they thought they were going to experience, or whether it's someone that, feels like, hey, listen, I'm winning in all the elements that I should be winning, judged by the outside. I have all the resources. I have all the kind of financial means to do whatever I want, but for some reason I'm not fulfilled. And so normally we address the life issue first, and we really kind of reverse engineer what do they want their life to look like, what do they want their daily kind of practices to be, and then we go back in and kind of make it happen by readjusting their daily disciplines and making sure that they're following kind of their true pursuit of life instead of the pursuit of what most people do, which is pursue the things that don't really leave you satisfied at the end of the day.
So now, where does this come from, Drew? I mean, I read up on you. I listened to a few interviews with you. You started this very early in your career. I think you said you've always been a sort of entrepreneur. Maybe unpack to our audience where this comes from and your journey to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I think it comes from two things. So the business entrepreneurial side just comes from kind of lack of. When I was younger, my dad worked hard and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. They made sure that they provided everything they could for us, but we weren't very well off. And so when I wanted something, I had to work for it. So I was the little kid that was running lemonade stands. When I was younger, I was shoveling snow. I was, doing the grass and stuff like that. But I also took a more strategic approach because I realized the more strategic you are, the more likely you are to achieve kind of success when it comes to kind of financial means. And so give you an example. When I was younger, we would go, I was from St. Louis, Missouri. We would shovel, driveways. Well, I realized that I could buy an old snowblower machine and it would cost me about what I charge for about 5 driveways. And so I was like, you know what? My first 5 driveways, I'm going to invest in a snowblower machine that was a little bit broken, but I knew my dad would want to help me out. He was one of those handymen and loved, the father-son time. So we bought like kind of a used snowblower machine, and that allowed me to go do faster driveways so then I could have a higher rate of return. When I was doing the grass cutting business, my dad always laughed at me because I would always have my neighborhood friends kind of work for me, if you will, when I was like, 10, 12 years old. And I would say, hey, listen, I'm a good salesman. I'm going to go door to door and get us clients that want us to cut their grass. You're in charge of cutting. You're in charge of shaping all the grass to make sure all the edges are nice. And then we can get, jobs done quicker. Lemonade stands, I was like, all right, let's not go on my corner. Let's go on the busiest corners in town. And instead of charging $0.25 per cup, let's get some bigger cups and charge $1, because we know the reason that most people stop is just because they want to donate to kids that are doing, the lemonade stand. Very few times you have people that pull over and say, man, I'm glad you're here. I was looking for a quick trip, but now I've got my solution. And so I said, instead of having people throw you $0.25, let's have people throw you $1. And so that's where my entrepreneurship journey started. When I was in high school, funny story was I didn't actually ever want to be a basketball trainer. I had a car that my parents had got me. They got me from point A to point B, 190,000 miles. Didn't start if it was too cold out or if it was raining. I had to get a jump start to get it going. And I wanted a new car. And so I researched jobs that had the best kind of rate of return, the highest kind of pay per hour. And I found out that refereeing gave you $18 an hour. So I was like, $18 an hour as, a 16-year-old, like that would be perfect. So I called this facility in town and I didn't get a response. I called them and left a message, didn't get a response, emailed, didn't get a response. And so finally I showed up to the facility and I said, hey, listen, I've reached out to, he's actually my friend now, Matt Brobeck. And I said, I've reached out to Matt multiple times and he hasn't got back to me. And they said, well, you can go check his office, but I don't think he's here. And so I went down and knocked on the door. He didn't answer. And for whatever reason, his office was unlocked. And me not knowing kind of business etiquette that you're not supposed to go into places you're not invited, I opened the door. I saw sticky notes. I took one of his own sticky notes, put it on his desk. I know you got my messages. Call me. And so later that day, I get a call from him and he said, man, you're persistent. Like, you want this job so bad. I said, $18 an hour. And he said, well, hey, let's set up a time to meet. And I said, are you in your office now? I'll come up now. And he was like, all right, here we go. Persistent through. So I showed up there. I met with Matt. He asked me, he said, do you have any credentials? Like, have you taken all the referee courses and classes? And I said, no, but I can tell you this. I'm better than the referees that blow calls during my game. And he started laughing. He's like, every basketball player thinks that the referees are terrible, but just know you have to actually be qualified and you have to go through classes and courses. And I was like, all right, tell me what I have to do. I'm willing to do it because $18 an hour. And he said, you know what? If really what you're after is $18 an hour, he said, my son does not like me coaching him. Why don't you coach my son's team? And I was kind of like, that doesn't help me. And he was like, I'll give you $18 an hour. So I was like, bang. So then I moved on from my refereeing career before I ever was a referee. And I started coaching. But when I was at the facility, I was working hard on one court. And there were 2 games going on. It was a 3-court facility. And one of the parents from court 2 came over to me and they saw me dripping in sweat, hands on my knees with no one else rebounding or there. I was by myself. And the parent kind of rattled me, put his hand on my back. And he basically was like, hey, listen, I've never seen anybody work as hard as you. Can I pay you $20 to put my son through that exact same workout? And so I was like, $2 pay raise. No longer am I a coach. Now I'm a trainer. And really that's how it started. And I started training. Matt Baker was the first ever guy. George Baker was the parent that came over to me. And it was funny because a couple years later, Matt Brobeck, who was the gentleman that was running the facility, he actually started working for me and was like my business manager. So it went from him from him ignoring me to kind of pushing me to the curb just because I was a young kid looking for a job to him working with me to build up Pure Sweat. And I started training kids. I had 96 kids in my first ever academy. When I was 17 years old. Each one of those kids was paying me $200 a month. If you do the math, you're making $20,000 as a 16, 17-year-old, you're starting to think, wow, this is a real business. I can really do this. And so then I wrote a book when I was a junior in high school that just had all my drills in it. And the big breakthrough was I started training Brad Beal. And Brad Beal was a freshman in high school that averaged 8 points a game. And we started working out that summer. He grew a few inches. He was lifting weights with his brother. So it was like the perfect storm, got him right at the right time. And his sophomore year, he jumped up to 24 points a game. And he won a state championship. So the fun thing is I won a state championship his freshman year. Then after that, I started working with him. He won a state championship his sophomore year. But people were like, what did you do to get so much better? And he gave me a lot of credit because I was the only new addition to kind of his team of his family that had worked out with him forever. But the truth is, his growth, took my growth to another level, and our careers kind of took off together, and word of mouth took over, and the rest is kind of history.
Well, it seems like people really noticed. People really noticed the work ethic. They noticed Brad Beal's improvement. They noticed that a junior in high school is authoring a book now on basketball and skills. Now, there must have came a point in time in your career when you said, is this something I really want to do? Or was it more of, this is something I can balance? I mean, you play college basketball. It's really hard to balance just school in general. I mean, did there ever reach a tipping point where you said, okay, I'm going to go full into this and start this academy?
Yeah, so I'm going to take you back even. So like the way that I was just really disciplined as a player. So when I was 12 years old, I gave up sweets. No candy, no sugar, no birthday cakes, no ice cream, no Snickers. I didn't have a sweet until I was done playing college basketball when I was 22 years old. So as a teenager, I never tasted any sweets. Think about that. Like birthday cakes were like literally my mom would cut up fruit and put, the birthday candles in the fruit. So my mind was a little bit different. I woke up at 4:59 a.m. for two reasons. One, because I wanted to get to school to shoot 1,000 shots before school every day. But two, 4:59 was 1 minute before everybody that thought they were waking up early at 5 a.m. So I just had that kind of weird mindset where I always wanted to gain an edge on whether it was, my opponents or just the people that I knew I was going to be competing with. And so that took me into the training world where once I started doing it, I was like, I'm all in. Like once I said, hey, listen, basketball training is something I fell in love with because it allowed me to do two things. One, it was basketball. I loved basketball. Two, I got to help people. So now I got to sandwich the best of both worlds. I got to not only help people, but I got to help people using the platform of basketball, which is my kind of favorite subject at the time. And so that was really when I decided to go all in. And once I saw Brad's success, I felt like I owed it to him. I saw that he had a chance to, make it to the NBA. And I felt like I owed it to him to do all the researching, all the studying, all the film edits, all the analytical research, because I didn't want to let him down. And that was my biggest thing was I always feared letting him down and letting the other players that I was working out down. And I wasn't willing to do that. And so that's what kept me late at night. I remember when David Lee was my first ever NBA client, he actually went to Chaminade, which is the same school as Brad. That's how we got connected. And I was a freshman or sophomore in college when I started working out David Lee. So here I am, freshman in college, NBA All-Star calls me and says, hey, I'm going to give you a chance. And what I know now is David planned on giving me a one-day trial, and he never planned on working with me again. It was just I had been very persistent to our AAU coach. We played in the same AAU program. So for those of you guys that don't know what AAU program is, that just means your summer travel basketball program. And so we played in the same club. And I was like, yo, let him, just work out with me. Let him work out with me. Let him work out with me. I'm telling you, I can help his game. And so he gave me a one-day trial. I was in Nashville at the time. I went to Belmont University and played at Belmont. And he was in St. Louis. And he said, when can we start working? And I was like, anytime you want. He goes, perfect. 8 a.m. tomorrow work? Well, obviously, for this chance and opportunity, I got to say yes. So I said yes. I pack up my car. I drive 4.5 hours back to St. Louis. I get in at about midnight. And at midnight, I went through and I spent the next 7 hours watching film of David Lee. Just watching everything that I could find on him. Interviews of him. I wanted to know what he was like. I wanted to know about his family. Like, did he have, brothers and sisters? Like, what were mom and dad do? I wanted to know everything so that I could relate to him on a personal level. And then I got to the gym at like 7 a.m. I mopped the floor because I wanted to make sure the floor was all nice for, my first NBA client. And then, we worked out. And when we worked out, never forget it. He showed up in his Ferrari, and you're talking about a guy that, it's never even seen a Ferrari. He shows up in his Ferrari, and but I held him accountable. He was late by like a couple minutes, like literally a couple minutes. And I was like, all right, we're on the line. He's like, come on, bro. NBA players don't run like when they're late. Like, we're good. Let's start up. And I was like, listen, like, we're on the line. Like, this is what I do. This is who I am. And so we jogged. I mean, it was when I say run, he took run as a very light up and back, but did it. And there was a breaking point moment during the workout where I was showing him this thing called a pound pivot. And when I was showing him the pound pivot, he was missing. And he finally lit me up. And he was like, bro, I'm never going to do this. Move on. I'm never going to do this. Let's go. Like, I'm not, these guards that you train. Like, I'm a big man. Big men don't move like this. And I looked at him. And again, he's 6'10". I'm 5'11". And I went up to him and I was like, listen, if you just get this foot a little bit more at this angle, you're going to be able to get your hips opened up. And when your hips open up, it's going to allow you to make the shot. Trust me. And I walked away and he did it. And fortunately for me, I don't know if it could be a more perfect storm, but he made 8 in a row. And he was like, good shit. And I remember at that moment, I was like, thank God I didn't back down. And afterwards, he was like, yo, after that first workout, I knew I was going to be with you for the rest of my career. And he's like, going into the workout, I thought it was going to be a one-time thing, but it made me realize that the best are the best because they want to be held accountable. They need somebody to kind of make sure that they're staying disciplined, and they want somebody that can take them to where they can't take themselves. And so that's what my strengths have always been is I'm able to break things down to what I call micro skills, the smallest of the small, the skills within the skills, and then build them back up in a strategic manner so that you get better results by being more efficient and effective, whether it's in the business world or in the basketball world. And that's how I got my start. And that's how I kind of, decided to go all in. It was more so of just not letting people down.
And I think there's something to say about that, about the things that you do, off the court, the things that you have put in time after time, from not eating candy to staying disciplined to, being focused on your side gigs during college, no matter what it would be. All those things add up. And then, here I'm just hearing with David Lee, waking up, getting there at 8 a.m. What do you have to say about the things that people can do, like the mindset that you're trying to build off the court and how that translates to on-court performance?
Oh my gosh, so much. I always tell people that if you see slumps on the basketball court, it's most likely because something's happening off the court. Same thing in the business world. If you see somebody with a lack of energy in kind of the office, it's because something's drained their energy outside of the office. And so I think that that's really what my job is as a coach, whether it's basketball or business, is my job is to kind of eliminate the things that suck away energy and help them pursue things that kind of add energy so that they can really be at their best, both off and on the court or on and off, the office. And I think that's really what my job is. And I think that so many people pursue things that don't bring them energy. And here's the thing, this is something that I think a lot of people disagree with, but it's so true. And all my clients, especially in the business world, that have kind of changed their mentality, have loved this. Here's what it is. You should pursue things that bring you energy. That's it. Some people say you should never pursue money. But guess what? When I was broke, pursuing money brought me energy. It woke me up early. It kept me up late at night. Then I got to a point where money didn't do it for me. And then it became helping other people achieve success. And my definition of success is inner peace. True happiness is just inner peace. When you can, kind of all out, you trust yourself, you know what kind of value you bring to the world. You know what you want to accomplish in the world. That's what it is. It's true peace. And I think that that's where a lot of people get it wrong, is they continue to pursue the thing that they started to pursue, but it doesn't bring them energy anymore. And so you can pursue things that, bring you energy. And even if they're just short term, you could say, like right now I'm going to do a 30-day challenge and I'm after getting a good body. If you pursue that and it's bringing you energy, great. The second that it becomes kind of something that doesn't energize you, you should refocus your time to something that energizes you again, because that's what we really want to do. We want to live a fulfilled life. not just kind of try to achieve things that other people are going to praise us for. And so, going internal instead of focusing external is so important. And that's a lesson I learned from my grandma, to be honest with you. So my grandma, she worked with Mother Teresa. And so anybody that knows anything about Mother Teresa, one of like a living saint on earth. And my grandma was the exact same way, brought a smile to every person that she interacted with. And the biggest lesson that she ever told me was, Drew, you're never going to have everything that you want, but you're always going to have more than you need. And so that lesson of gratitude allowed me to really kind of live my life with a perspective to everything, and to realize how blessed and fortunate we all are if we're looking at the blessings instead of kind of looking at things that aren't going so well. And so being able to train your mind to kind of gravitate towards gratitude instead of complaining and nitpicking all the things that could have went better will really bring kind of a inner peace to you, where you're not constantly in your mind going in circles, asking yourself, what should I have done? What could I do? What should I do next? Instead, you'll just be living in a kind of a peaceful present moment that allows you to kind of enjoy all the good things that are going on in your world that you should be really thankful for.
So wise words, Drew. Very wise. Now, I'm curious, like, when did you get to that understanding? Because that's something like you hear from, your grandfather or grandmother. That's some straight facts right there. And then the other thing I had was, how much do you focus on mental health? I mean, mental health is a big issue. I mean, Kevin Love is very proactive in that messaging in the NBA. Many athletes are. I think it's also having worked in, D1 athletics, having a best friend whose father, dealt with depression for many of his years after he left the NBA. It's something that really doesn't get talked about. How often do you talk about mental health, and how much does it affect, like you said, a person's on-court performance?
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I had it so much was honestly a couple of reasons. One, we adopted my little sister, who's from Haiti, when I was maybe in high school. And she had hydrocephalus, which is overflooding of water in her head, which put a lot of pressure on her brain. Didn't know how long her life expectancy was. It was one of those things where I remember there were times where my mom was like almost crying every morning when like Lulu would wake her up just because she was happy that she was there the next day. So that allowed me to realize how selfish I was, or how off my perspective was when I was worried about a bad game or, a flat tire or a car not starting up. It made me really realize, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I worried about these little things that aren't going to be worries in 3 months, 6 months? Whereas, my sister has such strength to battle through something that, we don't know if there's going to be another 3 months or 6 months. And so fortunately, she beat the odds. She's now a teenager. She's 13. But the surgery procedure she had to go through, and my family has a ton of, my aunt runs something that's called Healing the Children, where basically it partners or pairs together third world babies that have maybe some kind of birth defects with American households that are able to kind of take them in while they're able to do surgeries. And then once their surgeries kind of correct whatever kind of birth defect there is, they send them back to their family. And so just being around my grandma, who every day she went to church like multiple times a day and was just so at peace. I mean, waking up in the morning, singing Zippity Doo-Dah, like while she's like skipping to church, and just trusting herself so much. Like, I remember there were times like when I was in a car with her and she'd be, maybe need to grab something out of the back seat and would turn around and start grabbing it. I'm like, Grandma. And she's like, if it's our time, it's our time. And I'm like, I love that you believe in God so much, Grandma, but let's help God, drive that steering wheel real quick so we don't have to like see if it's our time. But I just saw that she didn't care about the thing that everyone cared about. And she was more at peace than anyone that I had ever been around. And then to see all these third world, babies coming in and still having a bright smile. And then I was fortunate to go on some mission trips. And, I remember one of the first mission trips I went on was in South Africa, and we went to this place called Red Hill, which was literally the most, poor community in South Africa. and there was a big dumpster. Like, think of a big dumpster that you would see at any kind of business that, normally all the trash bins get emptied into that. And that's where they put all of their, like, when they had to go to the bathroom, they would all dump it into that. And once a week, there would be a trash truck that came and took all of their waste.
Ooh.
I'm talking about where they go to the bathroom. They would, go in the bathroom and put it in there. And we played basketball with them. And basketball was different. They had a tree, and it was like a stick. And they had a tin foil, or like a tin kind of like cutout thing that they put as the rim. And they had one hoop for like thousands and thousands of people. But they didn't care. And they would be in a line, and everybody would take their turn, and they would shoot. And if they missed, everyone, oh, if they made it, then the whole area went crazy. It was dancing, it was music playing, and then it would go back in line. And you're thinking, most people in America, literally, if they have to wait for 10 minutes at Chick-fil-A, they are complaining. Like, what is going on? Do these people work? What are they doing in there? Where these people were willing to wait for hours just for a chance to shoot one shot, and didn't care because they were just enjoying being around each other, and they were enjoying that they were living. They enjoyed that, they weren't, dealing with a health issue. And so I think all of that bottled in, being around my grandma enough, my mom and dad were very positive people that were always, kind of, make the best out of every situation, kind of seek, the good in your day instead of kind of complain about the bad in your day. And then just, back to my grandma. My grandma literally had a bumper sticker on the back of her car that said, "God bless the whole world, no exceptions."
Now, Drew, and I'm trying to get your feedback up here really quick. I think you just dialed out here, but hopefully you can hear this. I want to talk about tactics. So we talked about the big perspective approach. Now, these things, a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've interviewed, will go to a third world country, will recognize something, and then apply their business mindset, their passion, dedicate their careers to solving that inequity, no matter what it is. Very similar to basketball. Now, I want to get into what are the similarities between business and basketball to you. You've been doing this for a while. I've been trying to relate a few things to our audience, but I want to hear it from someone with experience, someone that is in the trenches day in, day out. What are some of the similarities to basketball, and what are some tactics that maybe employees listening to this can take away?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is that I actually use the same practices with my business clients as I do my basketball clients. The first thing that you want to do is you want to have a clear objective. And so, basketball players, that might be improve your jump shot. Business, it might be, get more sales calls or improve your ROI or whatever it is. Okay, so you have to have a clear objective. And the important is, you notice I didn't say objectives. You have to have a clear objective. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, is they have so many things that they want to do that they're scattered all around. And really, you have to be able to prioritize. So number one is have a clear objective, which means what I do is the first thing I do with all my clients is say, what are all the things that you want to improve and want to get better at, both business and basketball? The next thing I do is say, okay, what is the most important thing on this list? If you only could get better at one of these things, if you only can improve one of these things, which one is going to give you your biggest bang for your buck? When they say it, I go, okay, that's number one on our list. Then number two, what is the second most important thing? Then I say, what's number three? And then after three, I draw a line. And people freak out. They're going, whoa, what about everything else? And I say, there's no possible way that we can focus on more than three things. And to be honest with you, we shouldn't work on number two until number one is accomplished, because you said that once you thought it through, number one was the most important thing. And if nothing else happened, if number one happened, then we'd be good. So let's focus on that until we get that. And then once we get that, then we move on to number two. Then we move on to three. Then we can start kind of focusing and reprioritizing our energy on other things. But I think number one is they have to make sure that they lock in on an objective. Number two, once they have that objective, I like to use the GPS analogy. Now you know where you want to go. Now you have to put together a strategic roadmap to get there. So that means not just like when you get in a car, I think this is where a lot of people fail too, especially in the business world. They think, I know where I want to go, and so I'm going to get there. Imagine if you got in your car and you didn't have your phone there and you said, all right, you know what? I need to go from St. Louis to Philadelphia. Go. you'd have no idea. And then some people think, all right, I know it because I know Philadelphia is northeast. Well, great. Northeast could get you to Pittsburgh. It could get you to New York. It could get you to D.C. It could Boston. You don't know where you're going. You just know you're going northeast. The only way to do it is by saying, all right, listen, when you pull out of the driveway, you go right. At the stop sign, you make a left. And it has to be that strategic where you know exactly how to get there so that you can get there. So number two is create a roadmap that allows you to not only know what direction you're going, but know exactly the steps. And I believe that most people fail at accomplishing things because they focus so much on direction, the northeast, instead of the steps to get there. I'll give you an example. If I said, like right now, today, what is somebody's goal in the business world? A lot of people would say, get more sales. And I'd say, okay, great, get more sales. What do you need to do to get more sales? And they would take one step backwards. And the one step backwards would be, you know what? I need to create a funnel, or I need to do this, or I need more calls. But go back another step, go back 5 steps. Because the first thing that you need to do is you need to research your target market. And so the first thing you need to do is do the market research. So you find out who you're trying to attract, who your target customers are, what are their, how can you speak to them, how can you show empathy to whatever they're dealing with in their world so that you can relate to them. But now we're actually talking. But most people go one step back. So it'd be like if somebody was in the basketball world, I want to get better at shooting. And they think, all right, all I got to do is shoot a bunch of shots. Well, if you're shooting the wrong way, you're going to keep getting the wrong results. So what do you have to do? The first thing you have to do is film your shot. They think, what? Film my shot? How does that help me get a better shot? Because if we don't know what's going on, then we can't tweak it. So the first thing you have to do is you have to take kind of an analysis of everything that's going on. And then what I do in the basketball world and the business world is kind of like a SWOT analysis where what's going well, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but then go further into that and really ask them to kind of look at what's causing those things. Because I think most people look at just the result of what's happening instead of what's causing those things to happen. So instead of saying what's going on, most people would say, well, weakness, let's say the basketball world, a weakness is I'm missing shots. What's causing it? And if you don't know what's causing it, you can't fix it. And so that's what I would say in the business world and basketball world. That's how it really works together is, the number 2 thing is building a strategic kind of roadmap to get you there. Number 3 is have some kind of accountability partner, which is why I think executive coaches and why I think skills coaches are so important, because that's when you get off track. Their job is to get you back on track. Like I joke around and I'm like, yo, I'm the guy. Just think about, when you're on your phone and Siri's going rerouting, as annoying as it is, you need her to reroute you to get you back on course. That's what an executive coach, that's what a skills coach does. And then once you're there, those are the 3 main steps. Analyze what's going on, look at the causes, not the what's happening. Make sure you put together that roadmap once you find everything out, and then get you a executive coach or skills coach or somebody, an accountability partner that can help, make sure that you're being real with yourself, because people don't realize it's hard to be real with yourself. I mean, take away basketball and business. Imagine how many friendships that should have been left a long time ago, or relationships that should have been left a long time ago that you just hang around because you feel like you're pot committed, And if you look at bad card players, bad poker players, what do? They make an initial bet and they're so attached to that bet that they say, I know this is a bad idea, but I'm going to keep going. And what we have to do is we really have to remove all the roadblocks. And so that's another GPS analogy kind of reference of, imagine you know the path, but you say, okay, well, there's a roadblock, and you just say, dang, I can't get to Philadelphia because a street's closed. No, what do? You redirect, you pivot, so being flexible in the pivoting is also important. So